Hey everyone, Eli here at the Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum, and today we're talking about edible water bottles. Now I know what you're thinking, that's a very weird concept to a lot of people, but hear me out. This is how you actually make edible water bottles with just a few ingredients and a lot of water. So, what you're going to need to do to make edible water bottles is you're going to need quite a few bowls of water. You're going to need two really interesting ingredients. One of them is called Sodium Alginate Powder, and one of them is called Calcium Lactate Powder. Now, these are things that you can buy pretty much anywhere online. Amazon, Modernist Pantry is a really good place as well. But before we do any of the actual prepping and making of it, make sure, especially in today's times, you wash your hands and you sanitize your workstation. I just did that before we started the video, so we're all good. So, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to get your blender ready, and you're going to start with just a cup of water. Yes, I know this is for solids. Use a liquid measuring cup if you have one at home. And then we're going to take a gram of the sodium alginate powder. Now, this is extracted powder from brown seaweed, and it acts as what we call an emulsifier, which is basically a fancy word for making it gooey, kind of like slimy. So we put that in, and it all immediately wants to start grabbing. So you want to have a really good mixer if you don't have a blender, like a NutriBullet or something like that, because whisking it by hand takes a long time. So once that's mixed really well, it's still going to have a little bit of a not so clear look. It has a lot of bubbles in there, but you want to let it rest for about 13 to 15 minutes in a bowl by itself. And so once that is nice and rested, we switch it over. It looks like this very clear, but it's a little bit more sloshy of a liquid than just water. Then the next step is once that's rested, you're going to take your calcium lactate. And with calcium lactate, what it does with the alginate is it kind of acts as a binder around the alginate. So I put this in about 4 cups of water. This is 5 milliliters or 5 grams into this. You want to mix it up. And it takes a lot quicker to mix up the calcium lactate. It is a little bit more of a granular powder, and it binds with the water a lot quicker. Now the end result is going to look something like this. Now once you have the finished two mixed, the two concoctions of the sodium alginate water and the calcium lactate water, you're going to very carefully, in as circular of a ladle or bowl or something as you can, scoop it up from the alginate and drop it into the lactate as softly and carefully as you can. And once you put your samples in, you want to let it rest for about 8 to 10 minutes for the binding to happen, because what it does is it creates a membrane around the alginate. And so the end result looks a lot like this. It's clear, but if I hold it in my hand here very softly, you can kind of see this little weird slug-looking thing, and that's the outcome. Now, you're going to have to practice a lot, because doing this takes a lot of practice in terms of getting the shape right, but it's completely and safely edible. Now, it's a weird texture, but it's really, really fun. So why make edible water bottles in the first place? Well, the concept of making this, called spherification, has been around for decades, but a lot of ways that we're looking in terms of future space travel, in terms of being sustainable in space, people have at times looked at edible water bottles as a source of making sure nothing turns to physical waste on the moon or on Mars. This isn't the exact example that we're going to go with, but these are all examples of figuring out how to be sustainable and not leave physical waste or trash on the moon or Mars or anywhere else we go into space. So, this really fun experiment you can do at home with the ingredients provided. I'm Eli from the Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum. Have a good one.